Are there no prisons?
Plenty of prisons.
And the union workhouses, are they still in operation?
They are still. I wish I could say they were not.
Well, I was afraid from what you had said that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course. I'm very glad to hear it. I don't make myself merry at Christmas time, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. Hmm.
Mm, Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
Yeah. If they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentlemen withdrew. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened. At length, the hour of shutting up the counting-house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool and tacitly admitted the fact to the expectant clerk.
Now, you'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose, hmm?
Well, if it is quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient. And it's not fair. If I was to stop you half a crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound. And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work.
Well, it is only once a year, sir.
Ugh, a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning. The clerk promised that he would, and Scrooge walked out with a growl.
Scrooge took his usual melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern. Now, he then went home. Now, he lived in a gloomy suite of rooms. Oh dear, who am I now? There he is. Oh, my live theatre, don't you know, my dears? Now, he lived in a lowering old pile of a building in a gloomy suite of rooms. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the lock on the door, about the knocker on the door, except that it was very large. Then let anyone explain to me, yes, if they can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker not a knocker, but Marley's face. Ah, Marley's face! As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again. Pooh. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes, but he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. Nobody under the bed, and nobody under the table. Nobody in his dressing gown, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude against the wall. Then his glance happened to rest upon a bell. A disused bell that hung in the room, and it was with great astonishment and an inexplicable dread that he saw this bell begin to swing. Soon it rang out loudly, yes, succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. It's humbug still. There was a chilly bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight and not too much to eat. A door at the back of the house disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of plain desks. At one, a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge wept to see his poor, forgotten self as he used to be. Suddenly, a man in foreign garments, wonderfully real and distinct to look at, stood outside the window with an axe stuck in his belt and leading by the bridle a donkey laden with wood. Why, it's dear old Ali Baba. It's dear old honest Ali Baba. Yes, yes, I know. One Christmas time, when yonder solitary child was left here all alone, he did come. For the first time, just like that. Poor boy. Oh, poor boy. Oh, I wish. But it's too late now.
What is the matter?
Nothing. Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol outside my door last night. I should like to have given him something, that's all.
Let us see another Christmas!
They had but that moment left the school behind them. They were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city. Here, too, it was Christmas time again. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door.
Do you know it?
Know it? I was apprenticed here. why, why, it's old Fezziwig. Oh, bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again. Oh, yo-ho there, Ebenezer! Scrooge's former self, now grown a young man, came briskly in. Yo-ho there! No more work tonight, Ebenezer. Christmas Eve. Holy-ho, clear away, my lad. Let's have lots of room here. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. The lamps were trimmed, and the warehouse was as bright and snug a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast, substantial smile. In came the three Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and young women employed in the business, and away they all went, 20 couples at once, round and round. During the whole of this, Scrooge acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene and with his former self. He remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation.
A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude.
Small? No.
Why, is it not? You spent but a few pounds of your mortal money.
It isn't. It, it isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to count him up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune.
What is the matter?
Nothing particular. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now. That's all.
My time grows short. Quick!
This produced an immediate effect, for again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. His face had not the harsh lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. He sat by the side of a fair young girl, in whose eyes there were tears. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can comfort you in time to come as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve. What idol has displaced you? A golden one. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one, until the master passion, gain, engrosses you. Our contract is an old one, and was made when we were both poor, and content to be so. You are changed. I release you with a full heart. May you be happy in the life you've chosen. She left him, and they parted. Spirit, show me no more. Conduct me home.
I told you, these were shadows of things that have been, that they are what they are. Do not blame me.
Remove me. I cannot bear it. Haunt me no longer. He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which there were fragments of all the faces it had shown him, wrestled with it. Then he was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further of being in his own bedroom. He had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. Now, before we begin the next stave, I invite you once again to reset and take a deep breath with me right now. And let's begin. Oh, that's delightful. The next. Awakening in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore, Scrooge felt that he was restored to consciousness in the right nick of time for the special purpose of holding a conference with the second messenger dispatched to him. When the bell struck one, and no shape appeared, he was taken with a violent fit of trembling. Oh, yes, very much like that. An hour went by, yet nothing came. At last he got up and shuffled softly in his slippers to the door. It was his own room, there was no doubt about that, but it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were hung with living green that had looked a perfect grove, from every part of which bright, gleaming berries glistened. In easy state there sat a jolly giant, glorious to see.
Come in. Come in and know me better, man.
Scrooge entered timidly, and though the spirit's eyes were clear and kind, he did not like to meet them.
I am the ghost of Christmas present.
Yes.
Look upon me. You've never seen the like of me before.
Never.
Have never walked forth with my elder brothers born in these later years.
I'm afraid I have not. Have you had many brothers, Spirit?
More than 1800.
A tremendous family to provide for. Spirit, conduct me where you will. I went forth last night on compulsion, and I learnt a lesson which is working now. Tonight, if you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it.
Grab my robe.
Very well. Scrooge did as he was told, and held it fast as they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning. The ghost led him straight to Scrooge's clerk's house, and on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling. Yeah, what are we doing here? Yeah. Up rose Mrs. Cratchit, dressed but poorly, in a twice-turned gown, brave in ribbons, and she laid the cloth, assisted by Belinda Cratchit, second of her daughters. And now 2 smaller Cratchits, boy and girl came tearing in, screaming and basking in luxurious thoughts of sage and onion. They danced about the table. Then in came little Bob, the father, his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame. There we are. And how did little Tim behave, Oh, as good as gold and better. Oh, somehow, sitting by himself so much, he thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church, because it might be pleasant for them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. Bob's voice was tremulous as he told them this, and trembled more when he said that Tiny Tim was growing strong and hearty. Mrs. Cratchit left the room to take the pudding up and bring it in. In half a minute she entered, flushed but smiling proudly. Oh, a wonderful pudding! Everybody had something to say about it, but nobody said that it was at all a small pudding for a large family. It would have been straight heresy to do so. At last the dinner was all done, the cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up. Then all of the Cratchit family drew round the hearth. I'll give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast. Oh, the founder of the feast, indeed. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon. My dear, the children, Christmas Day. It should be Christmas Day, I am sure, on which one drinks the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. I'll drink his health, for your sake, and not for his, and for the days. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt. The children drank the toast after her. It was the first of their proceedings which had no heartiness. Scrooge was the ogre of the family. The mention of his name cast a dark shadow on the party, which was not dispelled for a full 5 minutes. After it had passed, they were 10 times merrier than before. A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us, every one. God bless us, said Tiny Tim. Every one. Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner and a crutch without an owner carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
No. Oh, no, kind spirit. Say he will be spared.
What then?
Hmm.
If he be like to die, he'd better do it and decrease the purpose population. That's the surplus population.
Oh.
Man, if man you be in heart, forbear that wicked cant until you have discovered what the surplus is and where it is. Will you decide what men shall live and what men shall die? It may be that, in the sight of heaven, you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child.
Oh. Scrooge bent his head at the ghost's rebuke and lay his eyes upon the ground. But then Scrooge and the spirit were again upon their travels. Much they saw, and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. The spirit stood beside sick beds, and they were cheerful. By poverty, and it was rich. In almshouse, hospital, and jail, in misery's every refuge, the spirit left his blessing. It was a long night, if it were only a night, but Scrooge had his doubts of this, because the Christmas holidays appeared to be condensed into the space of time they passed together. But then Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it not. As the last stroke of 12 ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him. Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come? Yeah. You are about to show me the shadows of the things that have not happened but will happen in the time before us. Is that so, Spirit? Lead on. Lead on. The night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, Spirit. The phantom moved away as it had come. They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city rather seemed to spring up about them and encompass them of its own act. But they were in the heart of it. The spirit stopped beside one little knot of businessmen. Scrooge listened to their talk. "No," said a great fat man with a monstrous chin. "I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead." "What has he done with his money?" asked a red-faced gentleman.
No, I haven't heard,"
said the man with the large chin, yawning again.
"He hasn't left it to me. That's all I know."
"It's likely to be a very cheap funeral, for upon my life I don't know of anybody to go to it." Scrooge knew the men, and looked towards the spirit for an explanation. The phantom glided on. They went into an obscure part of town, where Scrooge had never penetrated before. Sitting in amongst the wares he dealt in, by a charcoal stove, was a grey-haired rascal. Scrooge and the phantom came into the presence of this man, just as a woman with a heavy bundle slunk into the shop. "Oh, what odds then, old Joe? Every person has a right to take care of themselves. He always did."
That's true. No man more so.
"Who's the worse for a loss of a few things like these? Not a dead man, I suppose. And they wanted to keep him after he was dead. Why wasn't he natural in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have had someone to look after him, and when he was struck with death, instead of lying, gasping out his last there alone by himself. Open that bundle, old Joe, and let me know the value of it."
What you call this, then? Bed curtains? You don't mean to say you took 'em down, rings and all, with him lying there?
"Oh, yes, I do. He frightened everyone away from him when he was alive, to profit us when he was dead." Spirit, I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. Merciful heaven, what is this? He recoiled in terror, for the scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bed, a bare, uncurtained bed, on which, beneath a ragged sheet, there lay something covered up. A pale light fell straight upon the bed, and on it, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this man. Scrooge glanced towards the phantom for explanation, but its steady hand was pointed to the head. "Spirit, this is a fearful place. In leaving it, I shall not leave its lesson, I assure you. Let us go. I beseech you, let me see some tenderness connected with the death. Spirit, please." Yeah. The ghost conducted him through several streets familiar to his feet. They entered a poor house, Bob Cratchit's house, and found the mother and the children seated around the fire. Quiet, very quiet.
I wouldn't show a week I see your father when he comes home for the world. But I think he has walked a little slower than he used these last few evenings. I've known him walk with I've known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder, very fast indeed, but he was very light to carry, and his father loved him so that it was no trouble, no trouble. Oh, and there's your father at the door. Bob was very, Bob was very cheerful with him, and spoke pleasantly to all the family. Oh, my dear, I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. Oh, but you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there on a Sunday. Oh, oh, my little child. Oh, my little child. Oh, oh. Spectre, something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but know not how. Tell me what man that was whom we saw lying dead. The phantom led him through an iron gate to a churchyard. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. Spirit, before I draw nearer to that stone which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they the things that may be only, Spirit? The spirit was immovable as ever, and following the finger, Scrooge read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name. Oh, oh, am I that man who lay upon the bed? Oh, no, Spirit, why show me this if I am past all hope? Oh, assure me yet that I may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life. I will honor the Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone. In his agony, he caught the spectre's robe. The spirit repulsed him. Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own to make amends in. Oh, the spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marlin, the heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be. I know it. I know they will. I'm as light as a feather. Oh, I'm as happy as an angel. Oh, I'm as merry as a schoolboy. Oh, hello. Hello, whoop. Hello there. What's today, my fine fellow? Why, it's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. Do you know the poulterers? No, the one at the corner. No, not the not. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one. Yes, go and buy it and tell them bring it here. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. His sharp nose sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. Oh, hello. Whoop. Here's the turkey. Merry Christmas. Why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town. You must have a cab. The chuckle with which he said this, and the chuckle with which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab, which he recompensed the boy, were only to be matched by the chuckle with which he sat down, breathless, in his chair again, and chuckled till he cried. He dressed himself, all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. He had not gone far when, coming towards him, he beheld one of the portly gentlemen who had walked into his counting-house the day before. Oh, yes, my dear sir, how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Mr. Scrooge? Yes, that is my name. And allow me to ask your pardon. And will you have the goodness? Just one moment. Oh, Lord, bless me. My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious? If you please, not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favor? My dear sir, I don't know what to say. Uh, don't say anything. Come and see me. Will you? Come and see me. I will. Oh, thank you. I'm much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. Fred, it's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred? Hmm? Let him in. It's a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. Wonderful party. Wonderful games. Wonderful unanimity. Wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office next morning. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming in late. That was what he had set his heart upon. And he did it. Yes, he did. He was a full 18 and a half minutes behind his time. What do you mean by coming here at this time of day? He was on his stool in a jiffy, drafting away as if he was trying to overtake 9 o'clock. I am very sorry, sir. I am behind my time. Oh, you are? Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please. It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir. I'll tell you what, my friend, I am not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer. And therefore, I'm about to raise your salary. A Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas, Bob, my dear fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a bowl of smoking Bishop Bob Cratchit. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, little sprite, he was a second father. He became as good a friend and as good a man as the old city knew. Some people laughed to see the change in him, but he let them laugh, and little he heeded them, for his own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further encounter with spirits, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that truly be said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending tonight's performance of A Christmas Carol. A lovely, silent, virtual round of applause for the entire Agile Lens team working away diligently behind the scenes. Thank you so much. I, as Scrooge Dickens, am Aritar. And this, in case you can't hear her, was Debbie Deer as the ghosts. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. Do tell your friends, as we have 3 more weekends of shows, two more days and 2 more weekends of shows. Thank you. Amazing, you say, Little Sprite. Thank you so much. I'm glad you liked it. Please tell your friends, as we are reliant on word of mouth to sell these tickets. So thank you so much for coming, and happy holidays. Fab yourself, Little Sprite. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone.